in the past few weeks, we have been discussing about the question of human needs and the question of human nature, and our belief is that in order to understand human problems, I think that is the main concern of people coming to Buddhism, and people feel that they have their problems. Now the whole Asian society feels like that, and perhaps you can say the Western society as well, and because the Asian society is so westernized, and they also feel the problems of the West, and that's what we have discussed. So much so that in fact we sometimes transport their problems into our Asian situation, and we begin to problematize our existence as Asians, as Asian Buddhists, right? From the perspective of Western values, from the perspective of Western thought, and that can lead to very undesirable consequences. And I have been emphasizing that I want to appeal for a return to the appreciation of our traditional Asian. Particularly, I'm interested in the Buddhist tradition, and because that is my commitment, that it is in Buddhism that we can find true answers to the whole question of human nature, human need, human problems, and the transcendence. As the Buddha has declared in all his teachings, he says that he has taught many things, he has given many sermons, but he is concerned actually in all these sermons with a consistent theme, a consistent point, that is about dukkha and dukkha nirodha. This means about unsatisfactoriness, and that is a characterization of human existence, a characterization of reality, yeah, and how to transcend it. So in this statement, firstly, it reflects the Buddha's own concern. In a way, you can't save the world. You can't save sentient beings. You can't talk so loftily unless you also are concerned with yourself. So the two aspects of benefiting yourself, worrying about yourself, helping yourself on the one hand, and benefiting others, saving the world on the other, are interwoven. They are not to be divorced, and that is certainly the case of the Buddha. Look at his whole life. He decided to lead the life of a monk and then struggle and finally won enlightenment. Firstly, out of his own concern. As I have discussed in other contexts, we see him very worried about his own inner self, and he felt very unhappy, and certainly from today's terminology we certainly can say that he was deeply depressed, very seriously depressed. When he saw an old man, when he saw a sick man, when he saw a dead man, This was so real to him, and he asked that question. You remember? He asked the charioteer, "Who is this?" And the charioteer said, "My lord, he's an old man." And then he asked, "Oh, well, I also grow old. He's touched and he's worried about himself. And that's natural. That's where he begins. That's where one begins, with oneself." Then the charioteer answered, "Yes, my lord. You, I, any sentient being will grow old." So in the same way, when he next time saw a sick man, a dead man, he asked the same question and he got the same answer. Each time when he got such an answer, he went back to the palace and he was so depressed. And he didn't know what to do, pacing up and down. That was the description that has been passed out to us. And then he was searching for an answer. What can I do about myself? How can I transcend this human predicament in which I am situated? How can I go beyond old age, sickness, and death? And finally, he met an ascetic, he met a mendicant, and he experienced the calm and peace and the serenity, the integration in that person. He felt it more than anybody else because he was desperately searching for an answer. Because all the problems have been very urgent in him. And when he saw that, he realized, yes, that's it, that's the solution, that's what I want, the existence I want to take up, the life that I want to take up. And he went back, and that very night, in fact, he couldn't wait anymore. He just left at night. He left the palace with the charioteer, and then he plunged into a life of poverty. He was a prince, he has all the wealth, all the comfort. Suddenly, he entered a totally different world. He just took the plunge. Now that's also what we must do. This isn't to say that everybody must become a monk, but if you are truly committed, really feel a true meaning of your existence, you must commit to it, literally, not just in your thought. And that's what the Buddha did. And he struggled. It was not easy. He went to different teachers in search of the way to transcend dukkha. So went to the traditional teachers. He learned meditation. He learned very high type of, you can say, meditation. But he realized that although he gained a lot of meditative experiences from the teaching of these teachers, this teaching could not help him to transcend dukkha of humanity, of himself. That's the only thing he wanted. But he didn't give up. Even though finally he was left with only 5 companions who appreciated him, who supported him. The Buddha, surely you can see that, was not a socializer, not someone who would go out to please others. Please support me, please donate to me, please build up my empire. It's not like that. He was not interested in gathering a crowd of followers. This is something we can learn from his life. Yeah? So he tried asceticism, we know that, and he realized finally that it's wrong to indulge in asceticism, to indulge in self-mortification, and what is needed is the middle way, and he began to accept food, he began to care about his body, and this was misunderstood by the very 5 companions, left behind, the last 5 who could understand, who could support him, they left him. And even then, he continued to struggle. And in this process, we saw that before his enlightenment, that's a very, very important episode. Now, I said that when we reflect on the Buddha's life, do not read it just like a story. People say, oh, what you're talking about, this is for stage 1, Buddhism class. Buddha's biography. I've learned it, I read it 20 years ago, I know about it, and nothing to hear, nothing to think. It's not like that. You must learn to feel. The feeling is very important. Yesterday I talked about it also. If you learn to feel deeply, you are truer to human nature. You are truer to be a human being. Anyway, so when he started living like this, they left him and he continued, and finally, before his enlightenment, he found a way, he found the meditation. And to cut the story short, there's another important episode I said. I was talking about the point that we have to read and feel the episode in the life of the Buddha. Existentially, you might say, for one of a better term. Not just intellectually, not like a clever man, not like someone who has received high level of Western education and very rational, and you miss the profundity of Buddhist spirituality. You must feel. Feel as a nation. Feel as a Buddhist. And as I said, I believe that all these episodes, whether or not the details are truly what exactly happened in the Buddha's life, in a way it doesn't matter. I believe that many of the things said must have been a reflection of what actually happened, but not necessarily everything, and not necessarily the exact ways of the descriptions that we find in the Buddha biography. But as I said, his life, you must say, this is the phenomena of the Buddha. And the Buddha is not just an ordinary human being. He is certainly a human being. But as I say, he is a human and superhuman. He is a man and superman. So because he is enlightened, he is fully enlightened, he is the one who fully unfolded the potentiality of a human being. So his experiences are the perfect experiences that a human can achieve at the highest levels. So to understand him, it's not enough just to read the sutras. It's not enough to just study the doctrines written down. We must learn from his life. That's why so much I talk about his life. And even when I teach the sutras, I relate to the life of the Buddha, the episode. Because it's in this life and examples of the Buddha that we can learn what is this enlightenment. What is the phenomena of the Buddha? What are those possible higher dimensions of human potentialities, human experiences, human capabilities? We find them in the Buddha's life, in the Buddha's example, but we must learn to feel. That is the point. If you read it like a novel or rationally, like a class 1 Buddhist studies student, you will miss all these things. You must keep on learning to feel, and every time you read, you feel something different. For all this life, I've been trying to feel, to learn. It's a never-ending process. The life of the Buddha. I said that it's not so quite important in a way whether those episodes are exactly reflecting, accurately reflecting through incidents, and that they happen in the particular order, happen in the way that they are described, because it is the phenomena of the Buddha phenomena. It is a phenomena of man perfect. And that perfection of human nature is within all human beings in terms of potentiality. Of course, we are not Buddha. And that's why the whole doctrine of Buddha nature, of Tathagata Garbha, of Yiloi Chong, originated and developed. There's a meaning for that. Why that is so appealing. So that's a different topic. I personally don't go for all the things that are expounded in that particular doctrine, but I accept that it's a reflection of human need, and it is an important aspect of consideration of all Buddhists who aspire to be in touch with your potentiality, of your Buddha nature within you, if you like. We don't necessarily have to ontologize and to make it metaphysical, right? Like some Buddhists do in certain traditions. But we must feel our potentiality that represents our highest possibility of development. But that is the phenomenon of the Buddha. And since it is within human nature, certainly it is within the nature of all those who have been Buddhist, who have Buddhist from the Buddha's time, the disciples near him, living with him, and the disciples, and not only disciples, of course, the lay people at that time, after the Buddha's passing away, and learning from masters who have learned from their master, who have learned from the masters, who have learned from the Buddha. So there's a direct emanation, outflow. The word is nishanta in Sanskrit. Outflowing. Continuous tradition. Finally traceable to the enlightenment of the Buddha. Right? So that is in the consciousness, in the individual consciousness and the collective consciousness of all the practitioners, all those who have serious about life, about practice, about realization, according to the Buddha, in this tradition. It is out of the collective, individual and collective consciousness of such people within the Buddhist tradition that these Buddha biographies, these episodes of the Buddha's life evolve. That's the way they have felt. And their gurus have felt, the gurus have felt, have experienced about the Buddha, about the possibility of the highest dimension of human experiences, Buddhahood. So they have been continuously, uninterruptedly passed on. And they are represented in this, what we call Buddha biography, or Buddha biographies, all these episodes. So if you read like that, you're reading the record of, on the one hand, of the human awareness, human appreciations, since the time of the Buddha, about appreciation, about enlightenment, about the Buddha. This appreciation, this insight, these experiences passed out in the tradition are in the collective consciousness of the Buddhist since the Buddha's time, and they were being brought out from the depth of the consciousness and expressed in words and finally in writing into what we call the Buddha biography. On the other hand also, you are reading actually about human nature, about your awareness of human nature, about human potential within yourself. You are also part of that consciousness, that collective consciousness. So it can be a very, very powerful experience if we read the Buddha biographies that way, with mindfulness. I cannot explain, I cannot emphasize more. And that's why I teach you to worship the Buddha, to salute the Buddha, to praise the Buddha, to chant verses, to bow down, to celebrate the Buddha's birthday. These are not just a matter of fulfilling the requirement of the so-called Buddhist tradition. As I said recently in an interview in Sri Lanka, and the Venerable asked me, now that you are engaged in teaching in Hong Kong, you have to face the, I mean, effectively that's what he said, I forgot the exact word. You have to face the public, and then you will have to do ritual, how do you think about it, you will have to do this, or do that, because you have to give them, you have to provide service to them. So I immediately objected, no, that's not the way I function. I don't feel like that. I'm not doing all these things out of a sense of duty. I'm not doing it just in order to recruit more members. Of course, I hope that there are more and more students to join our classes. That's a different thing, from a different consideration. But I don't want. I'm not propagating a movement. I hope you bear it in mind. So I don't want a big movement. And many well-wishers, supporters, they hope to help me to build up a movement. That's not what I want. It's my life, it's my existence. And this existence, as I said, cannot be divorced from my concern with the existence and life and problems of all others. So it is out of my feeling and my concern about the Dharma that benefits myself and others, that I'm doing all this. And I don't look at the market. That's basically what people think. Look at the market, how people like to look at you, then we package you. The packaging aspect is very important in the commercial world, right? Then you can sell well, you can become famous. I have always rejected it. Certain amount of course, what you might call inverted commerce packaging might be acceptable, a small, minimal extent, in order not to give the wrong impression, for instance. So even in the case, for instance, of a bhikkhu, although I'm very careless about my robe and the way I wear my slippers, things like that. You know, my bag I don't wash and things like that. But there's an amount of concern that perhaps I need to put on this thing also, because people might think that I don't care about monkhood, for instance, huh? And people will be turned away from you when they smell your bad smell all the time. You see, so things like that acceptable, you know, in a practical way. But other than that, to me, packaging a monk, packaging a Buddhist center, packaging the Dhamma is hypocrisy and is commercialization. And basically, I don't like that. So people don't understand that they feel that there's a contradiction. You want to spread the message. You talk about your mission, you know, so deeply. Yet, how can you fulfill your mission without, you know, having a huge gathering, having huge organizations, and being able to influence the world, you know, as a powerful figure in modern time. But anyway, that's what we want to do. That's what I want to do. And I don't look at the market. I'm not, again, borrowing Eric Fromm's, I'm not market oriented. I don't look at the market and find out, look, what are the products that appeal to the consumers? What are the products that can give me the best profit, you know? Then I produce the product accordingly to the wish, accordingly to the, you know, like of the people. There's certain, once again, we cannot go to the extreme. A certain amount of consideration of if you want to really help others, influence others, and do Buddhism, yeah, then you must understand, at least you want to make sure that people understand what you're trying to say, and you don't say things that each time offend people, you know, and things like that. There's an amount of, once again, you know, of consideration of the liking of the people, but definitely, in very fundamental terms, it should not be a matter of, you know, suiting the markets. If there is no market for the Dhamma, no market for what we are trying to spread, then that is to say, the teaching of the Buddha, our vision, our individual unique vision, then we must create it. I remember also many years ago, some, you know, well-wishers, some Buddhists in Singapore. I told you those days I used to go to Singapore at least once or twice a year. They took me to the richest temple in Singapore, right? And I think you know that temple. It's very famous. It's called the Bright Hills Temple, Kwang San. They have a lot of money, a lot of money, and very famous. Okay, and they have various kinds of funds. I think they're doing many good things as well, even though I don't. Perhaps I can't share everything. There are other ideas, but I can appreciate that they are also doing a lot of good things for Buddhism. Anyway, they have one fund is for publication of for Buddhist publications, and I was struggling at that time, you know, to sustain, to continue our journal of Buddhist studies. You know, I and a few professors in Sri Lanka started this, and finally, very soon I found that I was the only one who had to finance it, and only one who had to type and learn the page maker, editorial, you know, programs, and solve the problem of incompatibility between Chinese, and at that time, now of course you don't have it. At that time they didn't even have the so-called Unicode, fonts. So anyway, I had to do, starting from typing, checking, running to the, chasing after the contributors and running to the printer, checking the draft, everything I had to do. And also, of course, importantly, I had to take out from my pocket. Nobody else would do it. It was the first one once, I think Professor Endo very kindly shared some of my costs, but basically it's all from me. Yeah. So when the people realize that, and these journals, they never sell very well, If you can sell 10%, then you're lucky. So you can't rely on them for profit. Yeah. So especially at that time, we don't have a website, we don't have any publicity, etc., etc. And those copies that I printed out of my pocket were presented, were given to others, all given free. Only a small amount I'm selling in the Buddhist bookshop. That was the situation. Things have improved so much now, of course. Now I don't have to pay any money myself, by the way. So at that time in Singapore, then some young people saw that and they said, why don't we go to this big temple, huge monastery? They have a fund for publication, Buddhist publication. I'm sure they will be interested. They will support you. You don't need to do like that. And if you have no money, you can employ a stenographer. You can have your all these manuscript typed by others on the computer, and then the money can be also paid from the fund, etc. Somehow I felt a little bit reluctant because I knew that people, they probably wouldn't share the thoughts that I have, the way that I think, Anyway, I went with them, right? And the young man was the chairman of the committee, and he's very young, I think. And very, very solemn and serious, and asked, after a brief introduction, they asked, what are you doing, what are you publishing? So I talk about the journal, and also, of course, other books that I have in mind. And by the way, all the books that today are selling quite well, Buddha-Dharma and all those important books, each and every one I type with my hands. And each and every one I edited on the computer, including those published by our Books Closely Institute. In order to reduce the cost. Of course, those two books, at first I didn't pay money, and it was paid by the institute, but then I happened to save money, and I did the editing and everything. So I had those things in mind to talk to them. Then that man said, as the chairman, said, we have to look at the market. The first one is the market, and what he meant is, books on Buddhist study, especially we were interested in early Buddhism, you see, and my books are on Abhidharma, on Dhammapada, you see, and but these are not, according to these people, these first of all are not their interest. They are not interested in things like that, right? And when they look at the market, what do they want? They want to sell the books by Dalai Lama, and tantric initiations, empowerment, and secrets of the yogi. Those have markets. Well, of course, I greatly respect the Dalai Lama. I'm just saying it as an example. They look at the market, talking about the market. Go to the bookshop and see. Most of the books are about Tibetan Buddhism, and secondly about Zen Buddhism, now also Pure Land Buddhism. Those are what this man is thinking about in terms of the market in Singapore and in the world about Buddhism. And what he's saying is that, well, you produce a Buddhist journal, that's not important. You won't have market, right? You lose the money. Books on Abhidharma, you won't get much money. They are, as far as I know, they were spending a lot of money sponsoring those projects. If you write a book on the secret of initiation, then you'll get all the money. Huge fund for it. I went through all these frustrations, you see, and I got annoyed. This was distinctly in my mind, I remember. I got annoyed and I told him, you are Buddhist, right? What is more important to you? Is it the market or is it true Dhamma? And I said, we can't start writing books on Buddhism and teach Buddhism looking at the market. If there is no market for this, what we believe to be true Buddhism, Journal of Buddhist Study, for instance, based mainly on early, at that time, especially on the early Buddhism, then we have to create it. It's time we should create it. So I was ready to just walk off, go away. Because that man got a shock because I had an answer that he could not answer back. He thought that he was telling me, no, sorry, we can't sponsor you, because we don't think your products will appeal to the market. That's what is called market orientation. Where did he learn it? He learned it from the West. He learned it from the modern society. And don't forget that he was a Buddhist and he was a, he was a chairman of the committee. That involves a huge amount of fun, participation. He was quite young. He was not I think he's maybe couldn't be more than his late 30 or something like that. And then I went back. I didn't want to ask him more. And then, of course, I got the news from my young, actually they were student followers in Singapore, and they called me and said, they contacted them and they wanted to donate $1,000 for the single dollars. I didn't even ask, did not know. I think maybe the person felt embarrassed and felt somewhat guilty, but I thought it's more important that I had given him a lesson. I told him something from my heart that's important as a Buddhist. I don't care whether I get money or not, or I don't care whether I have pleased a person or anything like that. So coming back to what I want to emphasize. So I was talking about learning from the episode of the Buddha, you see, and that is as important as learning from the written words. We want to feel his compassion. If we want to feel his experiences as a human being, how his wisdom is expressed, then you must look at the life, at the examples. Briefly speaking, his words represent his wisdom, and his life and example represent his compassion. And these two aspects together constitute what we understand as enlightenment. So it's very important to feel the life of Buddha that way. And I was talking about his struggle, and in his life. And one episode is also very important, that before his enlightenment he had to conquer Mara. That represents that we mustn't have an idealized picture of ourselves or of the world, of human nature. That what has he conquered? He has conquered greed or craving, hatred or anger, and delusion, or sometimes translated ignorance. Even in a highly intelligent practitioner like the Buddha, as a bodhisattva, with all his practice, with all his vows, all his commitments, he still had these three. That is human nature, we have to accept it. And before enlightenment, that's one important step, is to transcend this. Now, in a way, you can't really solve problems at its own level, these very fundamental problems. You can solve problem with the kitchen. If you don't have rice, you can buy rice, right? And you don't have money to buy rice, you can beg or you can borrow money. Yeah, those can be solved. But about fundamental human problems, many cannot be just solved at their own levels. They have to be resolved by transcending them, by coming to higher levels. So we are characterized by this human nature of desire, of craving, of anger and hatred. We have to understand. When we understand this, we understand ourselves, we also understand others. We can accept others. And we don't idealize ourselves, we don't idealize others. We can sympathize with others. We can say how to help others. But that is human nature. That human nature is what the Buddha saw in him and in all sentient beings. The Buddha saw when he experienced the four sights. And the Buddha saw in his whole struggle. So that step of conquering evil, conquering Mara, is vividly depicted in the life of the Buddha. And then a practitioner, a human being, including the Bodhisattva, including Buddha to be, had to go through that step before enlightenment. That has become a Dharmata, a universal principle in the process of enlightenment, not only for the Buddha, but in the Buddhist tradition. You know, this Dhammata or Dharmata, you know, that occurs in the case of each and every practitioner and Bodhisattva on the way to enlightenment. So, actually I started talking about Buddha nature, the nature of a human being, and the best way to understand it, what I'm trying to say to conclude, is that it is by looking at the life of the Buddha, not just studying intellectually, rationally. Of course, rational understanding is also important, but much more important is learn the ability to be receptive, to feel, and in feeling that, you come in touch with your own, not just the Buddha. You feel that all these are within you. His struggles are within you as a human being. You learn to feel as a human being. And that's the solution today for human problems. So now, because of the need to understand human nature, and we have seen that in the case of Buddha, right? In order to find solution in a fundamental sense, in the ultimate sense, right? Of finding solutions to human problems, we therefore have to understand human nature, and on that point, I agree, or I was interested in the teaching of the humanistic psychologists. And as I said the other day, they are to be appreciated, right? In emphasizing that you can't really help humanity, you can't really develop a psychology that is centered around human problem, human situation, without understanding what this situation is. If you like, philosophical, for one or a better term. Not by mere speculation, but there is a certain aspect of intellectual understanding as well, what we call today loosely philosophy. Not necessarily in the in the sense defined by many modern philosophers. So they're bringing this element of so-called philosophy and combine it with psychology. And for that also they invite criticism, because then once you do that, then you lose the so-called scientific aspect of psychology, also psychotherapy, because you go already into the domain of philosophy. But people like thinkers like Erich Fromm, they insist that you need to analyze, you need to talk about it. Call it philosophy, what you like. This is one aspect that cannot be divorced from an investigation into human nature, which we need to understand first before we come to the question of psychology truly helping, or psychotherapy truly helping human beings to solve human problems. Yeah. Now, we have discussed him as an example of outlining human needs. You remember he talked about 5-fold human needs. What are they? Who can remember? One is relatedness. Yeah? And then one is rootedness or transcendence. One is finding your true identity. Yeah? And then very important one is the need for a frame of reference. And then he said that this fire framing sometimes slightly differently. Anyway, he says that these 5 define human nature. Now, in a way, there is some kind of certain amount of philosophy in it. That's what he means, you see. And he's trying to understand conceptually. If he question, how do you know these are the 5 human needs at the most fundamental level? You can't experiment them in the lab, you see. But of course, this so-called philosophizing is certainly at least partially based on his observations, right, in the field of psychiatry and psychology, as a psychologist, as a psychotherapist, in his experiences. So he sees, in other words, the most important human need is a frame of reference, which he called in some books, like for instance his book on Man for Himself, he calls it religion in a broad sense. So he defines religion as a frame of orientation with a definite object of devotion. Yeah. So that's what we have been emphasizing. And in fact, that's what is emphasized by Buddhism. Now, I said that often these humanist psychologists can provide our insight for us who are interested to understand the Dhamma. So, from that perspective, there's nothing wrong. In fact, it's useful to study interdiscipline. And in this case, Buddhism, for instance, and psychology or psychotherapy. But, so that is so-called application of Buddhism. So I have always maintained that I'm not really against it. People have misunderstood me, because I emphasize so much on textual studies, on languages and doctrines, and I shun away from those projects in the university connected with the so-called application, because I don't agree with the way they do it. It's very superficial, and without proper understanding of Buddhism, spending a huge amount of money, distorting the the emphasis, Buddha, etc. I disagree with those things. Is it? Not the idea of applying Buddhism. Because to me, I have said Buddhism is by nature application. The Dhamma is always for application. If not, then it's not a Dhamma. Yeah? For application, we are alive human beings. So I'm not against it, but it depends on how you apply it. So there must be one important principle, and we have to stick to that if we want to enter into interdisciplinary study, also called application of the Dhamma. That is, that we mustn't fit Buddhism into these modern findings, modern theories. We must do it the other way around. If their finding can be fitted into the inside of the Buddha, in the Buddhism, then they can be good, they can be useful. So we have to understand these modern doctrines, right? In terms of, in other words, or from the perspective of the Buddha's teaching. If we do that, then it will be fine. Most people, unfortunately, in Hong Kong are not doing that because they have money. When you say, "Oh, I want to do Buddhism and science," then people don't understand what all this means. The rich people will say, "Oh, you are a great monk or a great professor," and they give a lot of money. You see. If you want to say, "I want to produce a dictionary of Buddhism," nobody will care about you. Oh, it is so respectable to learn to do Buddhism and science, and it is so helpful to humanity. And if you want to say, "I'm going to start a course in Buddhist counseling," then you'll get a lot of money and a lot of support. You see. Anyway, take that as a joke if you want. That's the situation. So we come back to this, you see. I want to explain to you, in other words, one of the things I want to explain to you is why I sometimes talk a lot about, quite a lot at least, about humanistic psychology. Yeah. Now, coming back to just that point today in the Eric Fromm analysis, the point that he says, although we can analyze human needs, you have to know that needs are just like if you understand that we need food, then you know how to survive, right? If you understand we need medicine or you understand we need water, these are basic needs, right? If you are deprived of food, if you are deprived of water, what will happen to you? You can't function. And in fact, you may go crazy.